And I'm ready to hand it over to Kathleen. Kathleen.
Good morning, good afternoon, good middle of the night to all of you. It's very nice to meet you all, and I am very happy to be able to introduce the coaching model to you and to run this little experiment. I've done this with a number of different teams and different companies, and everyone I have ever done this with has found it to be enlightening in some fashion or another. Whether it's through sheer frustration or enlightenment, either one, and everything sort of in between. So we'll see how it goes this morning. So my intention here today really is to offer you this coaching model that you can use really in any one-on-one conversation where someone is stuck and really needs help in terms of moving forward. You can use it, certainly it's used most often in one-on-one interactions, but you can also use this with teams in meetings. And after we've had a chance to experiment with this a little bit, I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the meeting. Because I think that often people only see coaching as a one-on-one experience, and you can take many of the tools that are used in one-on-one coaching sessions and apply them into team meetings. So we'll talk more about that. So really what I want to do is just kind of give you a little bit of overview about how this works and the different roles that each of you will play. This is going to be an opportunity to do some major role play, and there are 3 different roles that each person will have an opportunity to play. You're going to be in the same groups of 3 for each round that you do, and each time you go back into another round, you will play a different role than you did the round before. So essentially, the 3 roles that you will each get a chance to play are the coach and the coachee, that is the person being coached, and then the observer. And really the role of the coach will be to really listen, to use the coaching model that I'm hoping you all got last night. I know that Elise sent you a link, and that's the model that you're going to use continuously. And really, the point behind asking these questions is really to determine what the needs are of the person you are coaching so that you can share solutions. Now, the trick here is what you find in coaching is that our tendency is to try and fix things. One of the hardest parts about coaching is to not move into the space of trying to fix something for someone or to give them the solution. And it's hard. It's hard not to do that. I don't know why we're built that way, but we just want to give somebody, oh, try this, try this, try this. And that's not what coaching is about. What coaching is about is asking the right questions and really listening carefully so that the person you are coaching actually comes to the solutions through the conversation. And that's really the magic of coaching. That's what they call the aha moment. I call it opening the viewfinder, where all of a sudden, when you thought you only had maybe 3 possibilities, the viewfinder has been opened through the process of the inquiry. And in opening that viewfinder, suddenly you're able to see, oh, maybe I could do that. That doesn't mean that after a certain period of time of asking questions that as the coach, you don't have an opportunity to say, have you ever tried this before? I think that obviously happens. But for today, what we really want to do when you play the role of coach is to stick with the coaching model as much as you possibly can. And it really reads left to right. So you'll see the coaching model, this thing that you got, starts with the questions around current reality, and then desired outcome, and then possible actions, and then next steps. So I really want you to stay with the exercise if you can as the coach. For the coachee, we asked you to think about either a personal situation or a professional one where you felt stuck, so that you can share that with your coach and be willing to answer the questions that you're asked, and then share and consider solutions as you go through the conversation. And the role of the observer is simply that, to observe the interaction and just make some notes about what you see in the interaction and learned, and any breakthroughs that you see happen, or anything that really stands out that you notice in the interaction. So each of you will have a chance to play one of those roles every time we do this. And afterwards, after a round, we will come back into the main session, and we will have the observers let us know the one thing that really stood out for them in observing the interaction between the coach and the coachee. Any questions at all? Ooh, that's good.
All right. So this first round is 5 minutes. So pop in there. I'm going to open breakout rooms, which are going to magically whisk all of you away into your private 3-person chat. Everybody but me. I'm looking forward to hearing what you learn when you come back. And you've got 5 minutes for the first person to run through, and then we'll bring you back. If you have questions or need any help, go ahead and holler. But otherwise, instructions are in the chat, which will follow you in case you need to reference them. On your mark, get set, go get coached.
I clicked the button one. I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to.
It's okay. We were out of time.
I know.
Yeah, you could say 20. You could say 5.
So we had a number of interesting technical challenges on that round, but nothing too terrible, and some of you didn't. Kathleen, do you want to harvest a bit?
Sure. So I'm going to ask the observers in that round, what did you observe? What did you observe in terms of the interaction, and what did you observe about yourself? And just give me a top one thing that really stands out in your mind.
I observed it takes time to get the story out. It takes time to, suss out the facts and the feelings about that.
Other observers?
I was going to say something similar, and also things come out in layers. It's not a straightforward from beginning to end process that there are in these conversations. If I were to draw a picture of it, it wouldn't be a straight line from point A to point B to point C across the model. That there are some loops and switchbacks and things like that in these conversations.
Okay, great. Next observer.
Well, I observed an internet problem and missed the statement of the problem, but got in on part of the discussion, which then turned into frustration over how short the session was.
I think that was my greatest observation as well as the observer, is I just really started to get into it, and suddenly I didn't have enough time. So Elise, you and I are going to shift gears here, and the next round's going to be 10 minutes and not 5. And I promised the person I was coaching I will come back and give you some feedback. We can work on this a little bit more, because it's a very interesting issue that was raised. Anyone else? Any other observers that didn't have an opportunity to share?
We didn't have an observer, so There were just two of us, so we.
Aha. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Juan, did you observe anything?
Yes. While you
So-
were in the
Yeah.
interaction, what did you see?
I think that asking questions is really important and crucial to getting all of the story out. And I think that Kate was really good at that.
Great.
So for this next round, Kathleen, shall we send them in and have them do 2 rounds back to back without coming back in between? So the next 2 rotations?
Let's do 10 minutes and then come back.
Okay.
I think that might be worth it.
All right, great. So what we're going to do, folks, Nan, if you have no objections, I'm going to put you in with Kate and Juan so that they have a group of 3. Would that be all right?
Oh, that's
Okay.
fine.
Because we lost one, and the internet seems to have stabilized. So now we have groups of 3, honest to goodness, and this time you have 10 full minutes. So,
Works.
are we ready? Okay, on your mark.
And make sure you change roles.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's really important. So Nan, for example, you were the person who was supposed to be coached, but unfortunately we didn't have enough time. So, but then this time around, you'll be either the observer or the coachee. So I will allow, however you work this out in your groups, make sure you play a different role this time. Okay? Great.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was a lot longer. Did it feel appropriately longer?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Great. Okay, good. I think everybody's back. All right, observers, what did you observe? One thing that really stood out.
One of the things I have 2. Can I give 2?
Absolutely.
So 2 things that really stood out is if you just follow your worksheet, it's super easy. and that, it's like, I don't even have to think of the questions. I kind of just looked over and I'd be like, okay, which question? And it was so powerful. And then we had as a group kind of the aha moment where it's like, maybe we should just use this ourselves because the way you have it structured was so powerful. The other point, I guess that's 3 points, is the third one was that we have to watch out for the closed-ended questions. Have you, did you, because it shut down the conversation a little bit. But otherwise, awesome questions. And if we just use your tool, it's great.
Great. Thank you. Good. And Nan, I owe you some coaching, so we'll figure that out. No, I'm quite serious. Afterwards, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Next observer, what did you see? What did you hear?
I'll speak to that. I heard a whole lot of empathy, and I think definitely a shift from what is the problem I'm trying to solve to what's the state I'm trying to achieve. And 10 minutes actually still felt kind of short.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Yes, you begin to understand why most coaching sessions are an hour long. It takes a little time. So great. Thank you, Amy. Next observer.
So I got to observe a full session this time and saw a master class happening with Sarah presenting her problem and Patty coaching. And I think the questions really did lead to an aha moment by the end that they would have enjoyed more time. But I thought it seemed to be pretty productive exploration and reflection on the problem that led to some other possibilities for the future. So I thought it was really beautifully done.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Isn't it also encouraging to realize that you all have coaching abilities? It's true for humans. I mean, it's nice to have the training and do all the education, but honestly, if we just really very consciously listen carefully to someone, it's amazing how much we can assist them by that inquiry of those questions. Let's see. Any other observers?
I think that's it.
Yes, that's it.
Free.
Okay.
So we have one more round.
We do. So don't forget to change roles. Whatever role you didn't play the first 2 times, this is your opportunity. So you'll have 10 minutes again, and then we'll come back.
All right, and I need to really quickly, what I'm going to do is one of you is going to be one shy for just a second, but don't worry, we'll fix it. All right, off you go. 10 minutes.
So
welcome back. Final set.
Yes. Okay. Everybody's back. All right.
Mr. Skeleton.
Observers. Oh, is he back?
He'll pop back as soon as he figures it out. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Observers. What did you see? What did you hear?
Again, Star.
Yes, please.
Yeah. It was really interesting to see how Amy was able to provide the space with something that started very serious, but she provided the space in a way that Ali, at least that's what I sense. Mm-hmm. She felt like relaxed. There was a little humor too. I remember when she said, "At least you know who your boss is," so that changed the conversation right away. And I noticed at that moment there was a connection between Amy and Ollie. And little by little, with the questions, and Ollie was able to gain this courage, this determination. Mm-hmm. Even her voice sounded so positive and determined. And I remember she said, "I'm going to go to the office and say, this is the job description that I want to get." The determination.
Yay!
Wow, it was really interesting to see that. And Amy, really, she conducted in a way that was like a conversation. And I liked that very much.
Yes.
Right.
That's great. The more familiar you become with the questions, the more you're able to ask them with your own signature style, in your own way, which is really lovely. You stay with the structure, but they become your questions. So great. Thank you. Next observer. Patty, I think we need you go.
Muted. I do that constantly. It's something I think. 3 observations. One is the how powerful questions can be. Mm-hmm. And there were, 2 or 3 times, Sarah, that you asked a question that actually, you stopped, John, and you're like, good question. Or you could see the breath being, let me think, the internal dialogue, let me think about, how to respond. And I think that is such an important part of this process, mm-hmm. To kind of help people to reflect. So I thought that was great. The second thing was the role of empathy in this. Mm-hmm. There were several times where Sarah said, "Wow, this is really interesting," or "Is this, made an appropriate observation that caused you, John, to do what you're doing now," which was like, yeah, she gets it, and so there was that. I also observed that it's really hard, because I found it with me as well. Sometimes I want to solve it.
Yeah.
To go between, helping them to solve it, and come up with their way forward, and then brainstorming a way forward. And
yes,
Sarah, you did a really brilliant job, because there was a couple of times I thought you were going down the solution and you brought yourself back and you asked the question, so what could you do?
Yeah.
And, that being one of the questions here is, what can you do and only you do to fix this or to move forward with it? So I thought that was a brilliant save. I don't know. I mean, it was deliberate or your instincts were just right there. So
Great.
anyway.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
What did it feel like to be coached? I'm just curious, like from your perspective of observing that.
It was great. I appreciated the exercise. Yes.
Oh, excellent.
Yes. Thank you.
Good. Okay, next.
I was the other observer, and it was interesting. Juan was a pro. You know, it was, he was, I mean, he just picked up on the questions, and just, as someone said earlier, it became very conversational between Juan and Kate. I was just watching the two, and it was like, I felt intrusive because my picture actually was showing up in the middle, and I'm like, oh, I'm intruding, because it felt truly like such a powerful conversation. And as simple as it sounds, it was Juan like nodding, like, yeah, you know, again, some of you have commented on that, the empathy and the encouragement. And then he circled back, you know, because we actually went through it pretty quickly. And then he's like, wait, and he went back and circled back and dug deeper. So we went through like one line of questioning, then he's like, let's go deeper, and circled back. And so it was fascinating to watch the two of them. And I, as the other said, I could see Kate's energy, kind of an excitement, because I felt that she had a clear sense of direction and action as a result of the conversation. I might be wrong, but that's what I was observing in her nonverbals.
Great. That's wonderful feedback. Thank you. Thank you all. That's great. Is that it? Is that all of our observers?
That's all of our observers. So now we have some folks who definitely need to leave right at the end of the hour. So one of our goals for this session was to practice with the model, but then also think about how we could use it in meetings. So I'm going to do a couple of questions for you in the chat. The first one is just, you know, as you went through all of those 3 rounds, was there one of those questions that you felt really unlocked solutions? And if so, which one? You know, was there one question that really stood out? You could do anything and not fail. Wow. Yeah, that's powerful.
There it is again. Yep.
Wow, look at that. Who can support you? What would you like to see? What can you leverage that you're good at? So I'm seeing some consistency in the what do you do, what can you see, but I'm also seeing that everybody found different questions, which means you were in different settings. So even though one question may have resonated for you as you move through others, perhaps, you know, hold that model. And then as you think about your meetings, what kind of meetings do you see where you'd be most likely to use this? One-on-ones, right? That's just sort of the obvious one, the one-on-ones, the performance reviews, the manager to employee things. Patty, pretty much any meeting, yay! So we're gonna open it up for our last 5 minutes for some conversation around that. And Kathleen's got some stories about places where her teams have used this model in their meetings. For those of you who do have to leave before we can quite finish up those stories, we wanted to take a second before we do that and just offer deepest appreciation. And you know, if you have a chance to unmute and just thank your coaches and your observers and your coachees, I think we should do that now, and then we can talk about meetings a bit.
Thank you so much, Juan and Nan. I have to go drop my kiddo off, so I'm gonna thank you. Thank you, Kathleen, and
You're
Elise,
welcome.
everyone. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Kate and anybody who has to drop, we are recording this part, so we'll post it too. So.
Oh, thank you. Perfect.
So I just a couple of things in terms of how this works with extended meetings. In particular, last year I was working with 2 teams that were really a product team and an engineering team, and there's often some natural tension between those two kinds of teams, and they were really in disagreement. And they actually used this model in a series of meetings to do a few things. First of all, it gave them an opportunity, one team, to ask these questions of the other team and get a lot more clarity around why that team felt so strongly about how they wanted to move forward. And then we switched, and the product team then got to ask the engineering team essentially the same questions. Through that process, what we found is that there were commonalities that they had not seen before. What they uncovered were common feelings, common thoughts, common solutions that they were not aware of. They were only aware of the places where they continued to disagree. And then they were able to highlight those commonalities, and based on that, that gave them, it was in those commonalities that they then had an opportunity to move forward. So it was really powerful to see. And then the other one I wanted to talk about also was in terms of brainstorming. I've used this with teams that are doing a brainstorm or a vision exercise, and questions like, what would this look like if you did this and we didn't fail? Or, if in a perfect world, what would this look like to you? And we ask these questions and then get a bunch of people up, with, and of course now online, with Post-it notes and on a whiteboard and so forth. And what it does is it gives the team structure, so that if one person in particular sort of starts to go down a rabbit hole, then the nice thing is the team can bring the whole group back with the structure of the questions. So it gives you a neutral place. I think having the framework of the questions, and this thing about empathy, this is the beauty of it. It brings people's natural empathy out. So, for example, if you have a bully in the room, they tend to be neutralized a little bit by the amount of empathy and the actual active listening that's happening. So it's definitely worth trying if you've got some unusual and difficult team dynamics. One other thing in that is that if you're having trouble with a team and accountability, the nice thing is the last group of questions, as you saw, that have to do with what are our first steps, what are our next steps, etc., then everybody gets to chime in. And if you're smart, you'll have people take on different roles. And it makes it a lot easier to hold people accountable. So try it with teams as well.
Does anybody have any reflections or questions they'd like to ask at this point?
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, final round, one key takeaway. What is your key takeaway? And I would love if you'd unmute and just quickly go through. Nan, you've got great takeaways, and I know. Do you want to share them out loud?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I feel like I have so many takeaways because as an educator, I'm just doing what we did today. I'm like, okay, it seems so obvious, but if I just have my class do this, but then putting the worksheet you gave us into when you're going into your group meetings, here are some questions. It's not, because I often remind them, it's not about what you know, it's about finding out what the other people know. So
right. Here
are the questions, because it's one less thing they have to think about. So so powerful.
Wonderful.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nan, would you like to nominate the next person? Why don't we just nominate each other for our takeaways that way?
Amy.
I think I'm astounded that this.
You're hard to hear.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
No, I was astounded that the script with, I think on most of our parts, no particular training was so effective. And at how it's possible to be effective while keeping your own opinions out of it as a coach, or at least explicitly out of it. So, I will nominate Patty.
Okay. But I thought was interesting, and to me, it was just the intentionality of it. And it made me think about, how I over rely on my gifts of spontaneity, that maybe it would be good to be more planful and mindful about what questions will I ask going into the meetings that I do. So I'm thinking more in the question to elicit and the questions to, when I always talk about leveraging everybody's expertise, how do you get that into the room? Is this way, but in a coaching way, not in a brainstorming. I think I find that more effective. So I was really pleased. I thought that was a great. So I am going to ask, how about Miguel?
Well, thank you. What can I say? Very revealing session, I guess, today, an experience for me to realize that I think all of us have the answer just in front of us, but we don't realize it.
Yeah.
I realized this when Ali said something very interesting. She said, I had a question just written in the paper, but I didn't know how I can use it for my work, she said. So she had the questions there, but she didn't realize that those questions could have helped her until somebody talked to her and asked those questions to her. Right? So that tells me how powerful is coaching, and probably we just have the answers around us, but until somebody help us see them, we wouldn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I would ask then next, John.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I was blessed to get to observe Patty in the coaching situation because it seemed so organic. It just flowed, and she really did pull things out of the problem that I thought were masterfully done. She did certainly follow the structure of the model, but it was very much conversational and a deep dialogue that I really was inspired by. Like, how do you get that comfortable digging into this within the structure? So it was really nice to see it beautifully applied, and I thank you. Yeah. And let's hear from Ali.
Okay. Thank you. My domain is in organizational learning, and so I think about when I think about what it takes to build a learning culture in an organization, I think about there's a lot of promise in introducing this model as a team coaching model. I'd always thought of coaching primarily or only as a one-on-one activity. And the idea of using it in a teams, I think, would be really valuable in helping to build the kind of culture that supports the openness, the psychological safety, and the sort of curiosity that we really need in order to become and live into the idea of a learning organization. And I nominate John.
All right. Thanks very much. I really like the idea of building what Ali was talking about have an open, transparent organization that can look at something like this and say, this is our way. So when we talk about meetings, we talk about how to structure for meeting success so that you don't have to create a bunch of super experts. So, guidance and structure sets you free. And I think we talked about this a little bit. And to me, this is the kind of thing that I would just put front and center to the team and say, this is one way that we can use in problem resolution as a team. And it sort of sets a set of ground rules, if you will, for how we might approach this. And it removes mystery, and it sets expectations for people. And as a non-coach person, I find it very confidence building that way. Yeah. That's that. I think I would nominate Ms. Elise Keith.
I didn't participate at all, so my big takeaway is that it's wonderful to listen to you all. And Kathleen, thank you so, so much
You're
for
welcome.
agreeing to spend this time with us and bring that in a hot, summer morning. Everybody, I think we've done it. So after this, look for, well, I'll post the recording, I'll post the chat things, and I'll ask for some feedback. So if you find these kinds of things useful and would like us to do more of them or of something different, let us know. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity. At least we'll have to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. All right,
Thank
see you
you.
then.
Yeah, thank you,
All right.
Kathleen.
Thank you. This was
Bye.
wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.